services or something?
They actually hold
That's
a huge.
crazy. Oh my gosh, I got texts from my children in a panic because their music was.
Oh, there it is.
I'm like, did you cancel Spotify?
Alright.
No, I didn't.
Alright, sorry for the delay, we do, because of technical issues, today is Monday, October 20th, 2025. This is a School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education Personnel, Finance, and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any items on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit our School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site. We are located at Village Hall in conference room 3344 and 45, located at W156 N8480 Pilgrim Road in Menominee Falls. Was this meeting properly posted?
Yes.
And the time is 5:52, and I'm calling this meeting to order. All right. I'm seeking a motion to approve the minutes from the September 23rd, 2025 Personnel, Finance, and Auxiliary Services Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the September 23rd meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, means our motion has passed to approve minutes. All right, moving on to our discussion items. The first one on the agenda is the district office relocation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Munoz.
Actually, Mrs. Wendler will take it from here.
All right, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Little.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining. This is, I think, the third meeting on this topic so far we've had this year. As we know, our district office is in need of a new home, so Mr. Munoz will kind of give us the background of that, and then we do have a couple important guests with us today that will review our budget for the project as well as the layout.
So generally, the overview is the police department is expanding. And they've already started work here in this upper level, laser drawing and redrawing all the rooms. They're gonna do a substantial expansion, 30 million, something like that, with impact fees, which has nothing to do with the school district. But we do lease from the village and have for some time. We're in approximately 6 year of a 10-year lease. We have signed an agreement for a $250,000 buyout of the remainder of our lease. So that did take some time, but we did finish that in about August, about the August timeline. That does include just the $250,000 by Christmas, actually by the new year technically. But then also we'll maintain our storage downstairs, which is substantial. We have a substantial amount of district material in the basement here, which kind of spans the entire facility space here. It's very large. So we are thankful for that, and also use of the boardroom. So that is part of the agreement, use of the boardroom. So that agreement has us leaving by the end, being in a new space by July 1 of 2026. So that's how we got to this point. I meet regularly with the village administrator. This has been a project of theirs they've been working on for some time. In terms of properly establishing the police department, location, expanded zones. This whole side of the village hall will actually be, there's a road that goes up the backside. That'll be shut down because the expansion will go that whole way and into the back. So it's actually a substantial expansion. The police chief will move upstairs into these zones, and their leadership will be upstairs, and there'll be a new front of this entire building. So because of all that, we need to relocate. Now, we did quite a bit of work, not just myself, obviously, Caitlin, Leah, a lot of others. We visited other districts, we've looked at other opportunities, we've looked at leasing possibilities in the falls, which would cost about $200,000 a year to lease similar spaces. Now, we were getting a very favorable deal from the village because at the time, there was nothing going on up here. And there was a friendly agreement, like we do often with the village. including with our community center. So we're great partners with the village, and we had a very under market deal. But we have shopped, we had a leasing consultant, we've looked at purchases, and you're gonna see a lot of different things, but one number to keep in mind is $200,000 a year of leasing expenses that will go away in future years. You know, we'll never have to do that again. Because just like the rest of our buildings, we'll be inside a building. So that brings us to where we are right now. Moving to Ben Franklin, we looked at all of our buildings and looked at space in all of our buildings and kind of came to the realization that Ben Franklin previously had been a middle school. And some people didn't have that history. That Ben Franklin, which has Kids Inc. and pre-K to 2 services right now, is about a third empty, approximately. The part that we'd be moving into, you can see it in pictures here, it's in some of your documents, we've shown it before, and I've talked to the Ben Franklin staff about it. But this side used to be locker rooms. We currently have a professional development space over there, used to be a copy center. So back when this was a middle school, it used to be a locker room. We currently have a PD space, and there's a copy center. That used to be a copy center that's over there, is generally what is in that zone. So a lot of ideas were floating around, but we believe that we can reconstitute the district office in that space, all right, with a renovation, if you will, of that space. And like I said, not have any sorts of need for T1 lines, high speed, it's all already there. We're already connected to all of our servers there. Here we have an exterior line that comes in that obviously we're not going to be paying for or managing anymore because we're not going to be here. That's actually part of our agreement as well. It's an important part of our agreement because of how we connect all of our district buildings via high speed, which you can't run a 21st century school without. So that brings us to this point. That brings us to all of these investigations and actually all the work with our partners at UA and BJS, along with Building Solutions, who we used before, with a project that we're just finishing up at the community center, which is going very well, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So that's what I have in terms of the background. Questions about any of the background from the board?
Perfect, thank you for that. So that was kind of a great summary of the last few meetings that we've had, and we are gonna get into the weeds now. So I'll turn it over to our guests to introduce themselves, and Kurt Weebelhaus is not on here, so Kurt, you're just as important, it's just a last minute of change of availability that he was able to join, so go ahead, Teresa.
And just as a reminder, Kurt Weebelhaus, he works for the board. We've carried their services over and continued our relationship with Building Solutions. They've shown hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings working with us. We're very thankful for that. And they work very closely with BGS and UA and have been sitting in on meetings not only in our existing build, but in some of the pre-meetings that led to this meeting. Sorry.
I think David already introduced us, but just a reminder, I'm Teresa Wadzinski. I'm one of the architects with the UA who's supporting the district in this project and also the project that's wrapping up at the community center.
Chris Coggins with BJS, project executive. Been working on early on with concept budgeting to go through all pricing options right now. I'll provide a budget update in a little bit, but also involved in the senior rec building project also.
Kurt Weebelhaus, happy to be in front of you again.
Thank you. All right, Teresa?
So as David mentioned, the district looked at a lot of different options as far as leasing space, other spaces in the district. There happened to be a exact number of square footage at the south end of Ben Franklin that matched the square footage of the district office spaces that was not being used by the elementary school. And so here, just looking at the aerial, that burgundy square at the south end of Ben Franklin Elementary is where the new district office is proposed to go. And then just looking at the floor plan, this is rotated, so north is now on the right side of your screen, just showing where the main entrance of Ben Franklin is as compared to where the proposed district office main entrance will be. So they'll be very separated. Safety and security, obviously the biggest concern, but it allows for the district office to have its own identity. It's a separate driveway, so people know where, if they're going to the district office versus if they're going to the elementary school. And then as we get into the floor plan here, we can talk a little bit about what spaces are going in. So
And I'm gonna jump in right here.
Yeah.
We visited, meaning Caitlin, myself, Leah, and others, Amy, Reba, we've visited other district offices, some that are disconnected and some that are connected. We've studied those that are connected. So some of this is based on, I'll just give us some examples. Our neighbors around here, Sussex Hamilton, their district office is connected. New Berlin, one of my very good friends, Dr. Garza, I visited there myself. It's a very similar idea that this is to what they have in their connection in New Berlin to Eisenhower, right? Their district office is connected to Eisenhower High School. And there's a long hallway, very similar concept. So this is something that conceptually we've called a lot of people, visited places, and one of the reasons that we're at this idea. Sorry, thank you.
So as David mentioned, what was here previously was a large copy center on the I'm gonna call it the north side of the hallway, and old locker rooms and general storage on the south side of the hallway. So in order to make this as efficient as possible from a budget standpoint, a lot of those existing load-bearing corridor walls were kept. That's also needed for code for exiting. So working within the existing space, we sort of have a north side and a south side. The departments are grouped together based on how they work together, level of confidentiality that's needed. In addition to that, there was a desire to increase the amount of conference and collaborative space that the district currently doesn't have here at the district office. So as you enter on the left side of the page there, the district office main entrance, that's an existing entrance that already exists. There's the creation of that secure entrance area, secure reception area, very similar to what they have now. People would need to be buzzed in. Receptionists are behind the secure wall, and then there are the HR department and the business services department are located on that side together with a handful of shared conference rooms. Across the hallway, the pupil services, superintendent, and curriculum learning and analytics are departments that are more likely to collaborate together. So those three departments are grouped together, again, creating some additional conference space that they don't currently have. And then there's a large professional development room that will serve the entire district. So that room is actually there now, slightly smaller. There is an existing hallway that takes up a little bit of space that's being removed, but that professional development room will continue to serve the entire district throughout the day. Just to the bottom of the plan there, that is a secondary secure entrance that with the appropriate door hardware and card access could be open in the evenings to allow for board committee meetings or other district meetings that people would be allowed in without having to walk through the entire district office. As I mentioned before, the layout works around a lot of existing bearing walls. We didn't want to take those down unnecessarily, but it works fairly well with the spaces that are needed to duplicate what the district office and departments currently have.
This particular room, the room that we're in right now, which is the committee room, would be replaced. There were a lot of ideas about this, but where it says professional development on the bottom, this would be there. The committee room would be that professional development room you see at the bottom of that drawing. So
How big is that about as big as this room, or
It's
like bigger?
it's
Bigger
bigger,
than this, okay.
it's wider and it's longer. So and it's
I bet it's 4 times. You could put 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I would say it's substantially bigger. So, which is it's a plus for us.
The conference room on the top, yeah, that one I think is more closely sized to the room that we're in.
That's actually, yeah, we had talked about that. So there's multiple conference rooms in there, but the largest is the professional development space, which would actually make a much better home for our committee meetings than this room, which is being turned over to the police. So this room that we're in right now, that we're usually using for committees, is gonna be going to the police department. Just to be clear.
So is it locked off from the school
Mhm.
here?
Yeah, so just right there, there's a set of doors that would prevent students from wandering down the hall. The hallway needs to remain for emergency exiting from the gym. So if there's a fire alarm or some sort of emergency, people would need to get out of that gym, so they'd have to be able to get to those exterior doors. But children won't be wandering into the district office throughout the day. There'd be a key fob there most likely, in case the principal would need to come to the district office for any reason, but the idea is that any visitors would be coming from the exterior and not from anywhere in Ben Franklin.
A couple of things that I can add that we talked that kind of were developed throughout this process. One is these are restrooms right here, and these doors go into the hallway, so this allows a visitor if a visitor is in here, so they come in through the main entrance, this door is open, and they can't go any farther, right? They're in the secure waiting area. A visitor can go to the restroom, but nowhere else. So that allows a visitor to use a restroom without going into any other secured area, which is pretty nice. And then also, when we visited Howard Swamico, we talked to so they have a relatively new district office, and we talked to their staff, their administration staff that works in their district office. And one of the things they talked about was they had a couple kind of open concept areas, both offices and conference room spaces, and they said they actually added walls and doors to the offices, and then some of those spaces that were like, coffee chair, like let's just sit at this table, that's near the fridge, it's not quite in the kitchenette. They said nobody uses that. So we kind of took some of that feedback, and that's why we have some of those additional conference rooms that are, actual conference room spaces. This first went upon you entering the secure waiting and you coming in this district office area. This is what currently is our enrollment space. So our new families that are joining us and our new staff, new hires as well that are joining us. This room is a little bit bigger, and that's feedback from some of our own folks who are doing those meetings and said, hey, when people come with, it's to enroll their student and they bring their family and there's 4 kids in there, the current space is way too tight. So we took definite feedback from our own staff in what works here and what doesn't work here, and then the experiences that we've had when we talk to other districts with new district offices as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, and some of our walkouts definitely like the Howard Swamico district office is brand new, relatively.
Yeah.
And they had some spaces they just weren't happy with, it was brand new, it's unfortunate they weren't using them. So we wanna, even like where my office is, it's all flexible, right? So as people change and things move, maybe the superintendent doesn't wanna be there, I tend to be very mobile around the district. I was in 2 buildings today, that's pretty common, I'm in at least one. So, and other people who aren't are a little bit more in the office, like human resources and business. It makes sense for them to be structured together like they are, because they do work together very often on a lot of their side. And I work with all of them, but also curriculum and people services in the middle. Questions about the layout?
I think I just have one concern. We talk about the hallway with the restrooms in it,
Yes.
that public can go in the district office lobby, and then they can walk right into that hallway, and then they're literally one door away from kids.
We have, speaking of door hardware, that door to the gym, the lock, it could be locked from the corridor side.
But then don't you take away the emergency exit?
Not from they just need to be able to get out of the gym.
Okay,
And so, and then the other door to the gym is beyond the security doors,
If you
so
go
you wouldn't
back
have to do
one-
that.
If you go back
Yeah.
one right there.
That's similar to what we.
Okay, so there's a door right there,
Yeah.
too. okay.
Yeah.
So we'll.
So they have multiple exit points,
Yeah, we'll
three at
make
least,
sure
I
to
see.
address that hardware on that single, or that double door for the gym.
So when you first walk in the main entrance, and then there's like doors again ahead of you,
Mm-hmm.
are those shut?
Yes,
Those be
yes.
shut, okay, so really you only have one, when you walk in, you couldn't go right to the restroom, you'd have to
They would be
tell-
locked.
Yeah.
You need to
you'd have
go
to
through
tell
the
somebody
security.
that, okay.
Yeah, those doors would be
Like, work
shut
here
and
have a
locked.
bath.
Okay, and then in the secure waiting area, is there like something, is there like is that a window right there, like with
Yeah,
glass,
Just
like
so
how it
if
is
we
over
go to the
here?
next slide,
Oh, okay.
actually, so if you go, drive by Ben Franklin now, you're looking at the back of the building, right? It's a lot of brick, it's a couple of old hollow metal doors, with the exception of the one main entrance door that's there now. And so, one of the things that, the project includes, and we're gonna get to budget in a second, is needing to put some daylight into those offices, but also that main entrance to allow for that security. So as someone is parking and walking up to the district office, the two women that are behind the desk are watching that and they can see that happening, so they're able to have time to react. So there is a larger window being cut in that location for the reception area specifically, and then there are additional windows being cut in along the entire south wall with I think there's like two there now, or maybe there's just one there now. But walls would be added for the private offices along that wall.
So we kind of basically recreated our front entrance here. So anybody can come up and walk up to the window and they can go no farther, which is what this layout essentially mimics. It's like the same thing. They can walk in and up to the secure waiting, but they can't go any farther. So this really is a very similar window to what we have right now with the addition, it's about counter height and then there's a handicap section. So it's basically the same thing that we have going on.
Yes, yeah, so that section of wall is a full height transaction window, which is a see-through window, just similar to at the end of the wall here. And then that whole secure entrance is full height walls, and then that see-through window.
Oh, another piece that we talked about, on the just like personalization side of things is when we were at Howard Swamico, they kind of talked about branding of their school district. You walk in and there's this big branded wall, and it's very Howard Swamico. We talked about walking into the district office and doing something with, the secure waiting area. So I like the way you talk about it, Teresa, is this is their first impression. Families who are brand new to our district, people who are excited to work here, and our current employees and families coming in and making this a statement. So we talked, we already talked about colors and things like that, and maybe the F, whatever it is, but that this won't just be, bland. It will have something that signifies that you're in the school district of Menominee Falls.
Yeah, in terms of the door hardware, Dr. Walker, you brought up a question about the access points with the gym, and there was it'd be identical to what we have right now in the community center and the Riverside gym. And that'll continue, that is how those doors are now. Now we open them up because until we get that new gym online in 2 or 3 months, or whenever our wonderful construction partners hand over the gym to us. That was a joke. Okay, we're good.
3 months.
January. Whenever we're projected to get handover, which is January of the new gym, that'll cease to be an issue with Riverside because that'll be 100% school, it won't be shared anymore with the community center. But even right now, it's the same door locking situation as the Riverside and the community center right now. That's it.
I was just gonna ask about, obviously, who works in district office, and I'm sure you said, right, this is this person's office and this is, right, like, here's where all these people are going in your minds. Is there extra space in here for growth and change? And I guess the reason I asked that is like, there's the professional development space, like 5 conference rooms, obviously.
It's actually a great question, and if you'll look at slide, actually the one that's right up there right now, that several of these spaces, you'll see they're labeled, if you look close enough, and it is a little small, but you can see, I guess you can't see it that great, but in the corner, this office is a flex office, right where there we go, thank you, Caitlin. In several of these spots, that sort of thing is built in. And there's some conference rooms here between HR and the other space that could become an office if needed. So many of these spaces, I would say 3 or 4 of these spaces are kind of built with that idea in mind. Actually, with our friends from EUA, we were actively talking about building it so that it's not just specific to the people that are here now, that it's very much something that people could change.
And being like wired to be an office if need be.
So
Yeah.
we're
Everything
actually,
you would need.
we're actually using this corner one here as storage right now, and originally it was called storage, and Teresa had the idea, she's like, let's make it called a flex office, it'll be wired and
Yeah.
data driven and all the things
Right.
with electricity and data lines, so that can be a flex office.
In the last office that I rebuilt, it was actually a high school office. And I was able to construct my own office, but I know that when I left there after a decade, that it became somebody else's office. That they changed, but my own thought about where my office would be, it changed immediately upon me leaving, just based on how people work. And we built it that way, it was same with this. Other questions? Good questions?
Can you just scroll down this? Yes. And those look like cubicles there then, under the superintendent's office?
Yeah, that's curriculum and learning. So there are spaces, we kind of talked a lot about that, how that space is collaborative between multiple people. A lot of our learning coaches, and support staff.
One of the spaces is for 3 program directors, who essentially all have the same job, so they work together, but it is still an enclosed office space. So they have their kind of own private conference room built in within their area.
Nice.
And then the space below is some part-time employee work, but also some
Program administrator.
No, that's
the
the
teaching,
two
I'm forgetting the
specialists,
term right now.
the new talent development, part-time talent development, and then the administrative assistant. So,
Talent development is gifted and talent.
yep, so the gifted and talented person is part-time, and the administrative assistant, the data and analytics person, and the curriculum and learning specialist. And so those two, it's almost kind of like a cubicle structure within a contained office space, just for sound. Sound can really travel, and this way they can be partnered and talking without everybody hearing it.
Nice.
And there's this conference room over here that, Amy had requested that she's got her own space within her office where they can easily, pop in, have a conversation, but also there's this conference room that we anticipate is going to be heavily used by our curriculum folks. So they can, 2 of them need to meet about something for a couple hours, that's there. And then obviously you have the giant professional development space as well that will be our district office, but also for our, for the district. So that's gonna be a really great new addition. Well, it's sort of exists now, but it'll be updated, upgraded.
Nice.
All of that space will be upgraded, because if you walk through there, which we're happy to do at some point if you would like, it's got a locker room smell to it.
It's not good.
That's where the bathrooms are, all the bathrooms are.
So it was just built for a different purpose, and you can see that it very much was a locker room that we've done a decent job of maintaining over time. It's damp, and
It's kind of weird. It's weird. It's weird. Also, this kitchenette down here, I just want to point out that this already exists, so it's just being kept.
Yeah.
That was another idea of, well, it already exists. What if we had, you're gonna have probably large group gatherings near lunches, whatever it is, interviews, and that's an easy space to just have kitchenette.
And then even though like we look like we're in 2 separate areas, anyone from that way can use all those other conference rooms, and we're gonna let them in.
thanks.
Anything else, Teresa? I know you have a
Well, I
hot
didn't
stop
say you.
update.
Yeah, if you just wanna go to the exterior rendering real quick, and then
Okay.
we can jump to the budget here, I'll let Chris play architect when I have to leave here. But, so again, it's the back of the building, we wanted to add some of those windows for daylight, we also wanted to give it an entrance so that people knew where to go, right? These are typically a majority of the people coming to the district office are new families registering their students. And so this is their first impression, they're welcoming to the district. They don't wanna get lost and be driving around the Ben Franklin parking lot. So, in addition to some signage, an exterior canopy, there's gonna be a little bit of asphalt removal to create some landscaping beds right at the entrance, just to kinda, again, if you're back there now, there is a lot of asphalt, it's the back, and so just getting some greenery, just to make sure people know this is the face, this is the entrance of the school district.
One big thing I wanna bring up, and this is an important point that I think both EUA and BJS helped us with, is that one thing that all of Ben Franklin is gonna be receiving is we're coming into this space, but a big plus is their fire system is very old and outdated. So as part of this, we're gonna make our state of the art for district office, but we're gonna change all of Ben Franklin's and bring it up to where it needs to be. There's nothing wrong with it, it's operating right now. But, you know, as coming in, it doesn't make sense to bring in a fire support or suppression system for a small portion and not support the entire Ben Franklin. Now, that's a substantial dollar amount, but it's an important one, I believe, that we've talked about in this process, that there are these things that come up that like, hey, what about this? How do we upgrade the entire building, first floor, second floor, basement, the entire fire system and safety system for all of BF, including district office. So just keep in mind that that is a major upgrade that I do believe is critical for safety, security, and, you know.
Yeah, there is currently a fire alarm system in the building right now. And part of the upgrade of the 10,000 square foot of the renovation, they're gonna
Budget.
bring in the updated fire alarm system, which is like a remote annunciator to tie into the existing fire alarm system.
Okay.
But with that, they're gonna need to, start upgrading the head end. And then once you start upgrading the head end, they're gonna have to update every single one of these devices. So there's devices in there and there's full coverage. There's no a sprinkler system in the building right now, which is okay, as long as it's covered by a fire alarm system. So we're currently working through with our MEP contractors, our mechanical, electrical, plumbing contractors right now. I'm going through what the code requirements are right now, but the worst case scenario right now, like we just talked about, is captured in this current budget update right now.
Yeah, so that's something that within the last week or so, we started to become aware of. But the more we think about it, given that our 10-year SIP, that's a long-term building for us. You know, obviously it's students, staff, community, obviously with district office, and obviously staff in there as well. We think it's an important piece that we would have to do anyway, down the road, and we might as well do it while we're there.
Would this district office have its own separate address or just use the school's address?
We're actually working on that, actually, that's
I'm just thinking of like
a great
deliveries,
question.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't wanna haul district office deliveries all the way from the north end to the south end.
Why don't you guys go ahead, that's something we're working on right now.
Yeah, that did actually come up a few meetings ago, and I think you probably have
Okay.
leverage with the village.
Yeah, I
So
have some
we're
right
with that.
I meet with the village administrator monthly, we meet this week, so this is on our,
Do you get to name the street that comes through?
just.
Ooh, I like that idea.
This is a public meeting and let me meet with the village administrator.
I'm just
this
asking a
week.
public question,
Thank you.
of public concern.
Yeah, I don't think so. We'll let the village take care of the village.
So now the financial snapshot, Kurt's here from Building Solutions, so this is their financial snapshot. There's two aspects of a budget for this project. Obviously, we have the construction side, which are the $3.3 million, and then there's the owner direct costs, which are the soft costs. In aggregate, create the project cost total. I'll talk specifically to the construction costs. So the 3.3 number, about 3 weeks ago, Epside Newland provided a progress set of drawings. There's been, like Ian talked about, there's been multiple meetings. And I think the last couple of meetings that we need to work on to get fully designed documents to bid out later in November would be to finalize the finishes and the door hardware. So currently, we took those drawings, we updated our budget here, which is this number right here. In addition to, we took those documents and we're bidding out the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. We took numbers last week and we're in the process of scoping out those contractors right now. So part of this number captures that exposure. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems aggregate of the 3.3 number, it's about 27%, which is about $900,000 of the building right now. So we're capturing a large exposure by bringing on those contractors, and we're doing a design build. So they've been in the area, they've been in this place, area of the building. They know what's there. We provided some bid documents along with Epstein Ullin, and we'll have a updated number in this next week or so. So that exposure is captured.
Chris, could you give a rough number, maybe you have an accurate number of the fire system altogether?
Fire system altogether,
Several $100,000.
it's, well, like we listed here as $386,000. That's to bring up the entire building. Entire building, and then part of just the district office, it is anywhere from, I think it's like $65,000 just for the district office, for alarm work in addition to that. So it's over a $400,000 venture there. So part of the construction costs are, there's a contingency for both, construction contingency, which is 5%. We're carrying 5% right now, being that, the documents are about 75% done. And Epstein Ullin is finishing, like we said, between the door hardware and the finishes. So we're gonna get that deliverable at the end of November to bid out. So that's why we're carrying 5%. And we've been in the building, we've scanned the area. Epstein Ullin provided a scan of the whole area, so we're well aware of what's there right now. And then in addition, we're carrying a 2% design contingency within that number also.
We're aware of what we can see. We don't know.
We've opened up a couple of areas too, correct, yeah. But the 5% of what we're carrying right now would capture the unforeseen conditions.
And unforeseen conditions could be like,
Open up a wall and we think a pipe's there and it's not there. Or opening up a wall thinking that there's a support there to hold that wall up, it's not there, so we have to add some structural members.
We did actually, our structural engineer last week identified 2 very, very small bearing walls that we didn't assume were bearing just because they were, I don't know, only 8 feet in length versus, the longer, wider bearing walls that are pretty obvious. And so we just flipped 2 offices so that we were able to maintain those and again, not have to replace them with columns and beams, but a lot of that investigation is done now. So again, we're getting to the point where there's less and less surprises.
part of the push up of the budget just based on some early numbers were the fire piece. It's over $400,000 in fire safety system. But I think it's important, in my personal opinion, that we definitely take care of the whole building when we're there.
I apologize, I need to be at another board meeting, so please drill Chris with really technical architectural questions. Because he is taking over, so thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes, so just backing up, so $3.3 million construction numbers inclusive of contingencies, both design and construction. The pre-scoped mechanical electrical numbers, and then the schedule for the project would be, it's not in there right now, but we would get final bid documents to bid out at the end of November. We'd take numbers in December, and I think we talked about next steps coming to a board meeting to provide board recommendations in January. Goal is to start work in the existing building during school in February. And then be substantially complete in early June, so the district can move from here into the Ben Franklin area. So part of the construction cost includes that schedule. And we're gonna provide temporary partitions to separate the existing school to to the work area. We're working with the district to navigate that. Is there any questions as it relates to the construction costs?
once we get to January and February, we've already had Justin Goffert, the building principal, involved in multiple meetings. He'll become even more involved to make sure that, the building is, all those partitions and pieces with the transition are taken care of.
I do see $63,000 in furniture, but you guys are gonna reuse as much furniture as you can here.
Absolutely.
Right.
Plan. So we can take this furniture with us, it's not the villages then.
We've actually gotten down to even talking about cabinetry and things like that in this space. So those are also discussions this week with the village administrator.
The furniture is really for those additional conference rooms. And then also the professional development center, which is district-wide, has some pretty old furniture that's not necessarily conducive to how they wanna use it. And so we're all taking our offices, whatever fits with us. It's really the conference rooms and the professional development center that need stuff.
In the professional development space, we've worked with Katie Welke about not having these sorts of issues when we make the transition to that space, because it's gonna be larger with multiple TVs on each side. I think a mobile TV we had talked about at one end. So it's a space that will much more easily handle many meetings than what this room does.
And I'm assuming the IT and AV includes a camera system stuff too.
Yes. Yes.
Do we know, just looking at lines of the hazardous material testing and abatement, do we know of any, obviously like there's asbestos or anything in the building and how that's mitigated if we're doing the construction during school? I understand you can seal it off and.
Yep. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, so Chris's team did a survey of the building earlier this year of the space, and there is, we call some hot items as relates to VCT flooring, some caulking at windows and doors, and then some HVAC pipe fittings insulation, so that's all known. And then the next step is to schedule when that work would happen. So that would happen prior to us starting the work. So when we say we're gonna start in February, it's a matter of when would that hazardous material removal start, either prior to that, or if that starts in February and then we follow, like right after that. But that's the extent of it, between caulk, VCT flooring, and then some fittings and insulation.
And that was based on Chris's team's analysis then.
We actually had EMC, who was our environmental consultant, doing an inspection report of this entire space.
Oh, good.
And so they wrote up, recommendations in regards to what areas need, or were identified.
Okay.
And then we handed that off to Chris.
So comfortable with that number? I know abatement can be expensive.
Yeah, that's a variable, and all these numbers right now are based on historical costs, right? So we had good information to work off of, okay, abating floor is, $7 a square foot type of thing. So that's all historical, so we're comfortable with these numbers, but I think it's important to note that we're bidding all this out.
Sure.
So, much like we did on the rec center, we approve a budget and then we have that budget as our control. And so we bid it out, and that's the number that we have to make sure we hit it, and ideally we're coming better, right? So we'll come back in January to present the contractors who are being recommended to be awarded. That's when we'll have that next budget update for that.
I know that work usually gets done like in summer, I think we talked about it, at Valley View maybe, when we toured there, it's not, I guess, does anything different have to be done if you're doing it during school year?
Yeah, I did multiple projects like this. It's just a matter of timing. Like they can do things at night or on the weekend, and VGS has been very accommodating. Actually, just using the current build that we're in right now, they did floor grinding through the weekend. They put in a gym through the weekend, actually through a holiday weekend. So those sorts of accommodations are pretty common with respect to normal operations, I think is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which we don't want to be disrupted, of course.
It's nice we can section this portion of the building off, so sometimes you don't have that luxury, but with the new section as far as the building office is positive.
Thank you for the flexibility on that.
My last question was just around like noise. I understand that there's not a second floor to this area of the building. So maybe it's less of a concern because you're further away, but
It's a good question.
Yeah, so this similar to what we've done on projects here in the district and other projects in schools, you know, we will navigate the heavy, busy, noisy work either before or after school hours, and then we'll coordinate with the principal also if there's any testing specific timeframes that we'll make sure that that we'll organize around that.
Yeah, just an example with Riverside, we definitely made some adjustments working with the principal and the teachers on, BJS getting started on work, to make sure that there wasn't those sorts of disruptions. And that has us on track and on budget in that situation. So we have a good recent track record with both these gentlemen and their companies.
So I'll move into timeline. We will present this information once again on Monday, the 27th at the full board meeting. And then the next board item will be those subcontractor recommendations that Mr. Coggins just talked through. So that will come, we did the same thing with the CE and Rec project, if you recall that, and kind of went through the bids and the recommendations. So that will be board approval on January 12th. Any questions?
A lot of good work on this, I appreciate that. Any questions from any board members? Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for joining and we won't keep you, so if you don't want to stick around for our last two items, you're freed up.
Thank you.
Thank you
You
guys.
guys can stay if you want.
Thanks for the offer.
And then what you'll find with the rest of this committee meeting, when Caitlin gets into the actual budget, where the mill rate is gonna be at and where all these dollars are gonna come from. We're in a good spot that way, at least for the short term, with all of this. But they'll be getting into that right now.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, yes.
All right, we'll move on to the second subject here, pharmacy benefits manager change.
So I gave everybody a handout, and I did post it, I did post it publicly, so if people are watching, they can go into Word docs. I think I'm sure Caitlin and I have talked about it a dozen times in finance and personnel, that providing healthcare benefits to your staff is critical, and obviously something every employer is doing and needs to continue to do. Unfortunately, like everyone else, we also face those budgetary constraints of a healthcare industry who we consistently see, increasing their costs. So I try not to have a healthcare change every year. I don't even really want to be making changes every other year, but 2 years ago, we moved to the Nexus ACO for our healthcare, which created, I really call it 3 tiers, they call it a 2-tier system and out of network, which we did actually see bring in substantial savings. Pharmacy had to come next. Our pharmacy costs are just significantly growing. So on the first slide, it's called a pharmacy benefits manager or a PBM. And I just kind of put the definition there because we might be saying PBM or pharmacy benefits manager and people might not know what that is. Who do we currently have? ESI, Express Scripts, so people might be more familiar with that name. Yes, I get my prescriptions through ESI and Express Scripts. And we are moving to SmithRx, and then that's their logo on the side. So if you were to search for it, you'll be looking at the right group. And then when is this change? It's connected to our open enrollment period. We have benefits in the district on a calendar year, January 1 through December 31st. So any changes we make become effective with that first day of the new calendar year. So, on the second slide, it's really the third slide from the title. Why are we making this change to a new PDM? And just doing some research and talking to our consultants, every year, I think we all know this, healthcare costs rises. And we have seen pre-COVID lows of our healthcare prices increasing 4 to 5%. However, in the last few years, we have seen increases at 6 to 11%. I just met with about 25 other HR directors from other districts. Everyone is seeing an increase of their premiums of 6 to 14% for this, for whatever their new year is. Some start July 1, so they've already had it. Some start 9/1, they've already had it. And then the bulk of us are seeing those happen 1/1. So obviously we know that these costs are also compounding each year. So each year we're seeing 6 to 11%, which really does start to make it unsustainable for most employers and then individuals who also have to go get their own insurance. In the school district of Menominee Falls, we are an anomaly, and we're not an anomaly where we'd like to be one. Our pharmacy spend is 45% of our total health spend. The national average is 25%. And then to our neighbors around here, almost all of them are under that 25%. So this clearly was an area where we really needed to look and see what is it that we can do. Anytime you spend money from the budget in one area, you can't spend it in another, right? And so for years we have consistently have had to figure out where to keep coming up with this 6 to 11% and not just passing it along to the employee share of the premium. So probably another thing of note when it comes to our expenses is of the 45% of our total healthcare budget that we spend on pharmacy, over 70% of that amount are spent on specialty medications. I call it the stuff you see commercials for. And that 70% of pharmacy spend represents 2% of the people covered on our health plan. So, big spend on a small population, a deserving population though. So we really had to go out there, use our consultants, probably more than we ever have, to try to help us find a solution, because each year that 70% keeps growing and that 2% actually doesn't really change that much. So we clearly had something that we needed to do. However, we also want people to be able to have all the medications that they need, because so many of these things are necessary for people to live, at a higher quality of life. So the next slide, that we've already made some changes 2 years ago, moving to the Nexus ACO, which we have seen bringing reductions each year. And it's great because honestly, without seeing those hundreds of thousands of dollars going down, we would be even in a worse place right now had we not made those changes 2 years ago. So we are absolutely benefiting from those changes when it comes to our spend, and I would say very minimal disruption. We had this 2-week window where Ascension wasn't in United Healthcare that maybe 3 people reached out to me in a panic because they go to Ascension. Ascension is tier 2 for us, so still not a tier 1 provider, but we respect the fact that people, do have relationships with their medical providers. I am very happy that Ascension is now back in, and it's actually retro to October 1st. So if anybody was seeing an Ascension or tier 2 provider that they are, those things will be covered at that percentage of tier 2.
So this is the slide where in previous, maybe months ago, all of the board was brought up to speed on the 1.6 million of overage. This is the slide where that comes into effect and where we had to spread those expenses over 2 years, 2 budgets. In order to make up that unbudgeted expense. So this is the dial in and the focus in for that piece, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so as we have seen our medical spend decrease, we have unfortunately seen our pharmacy go up by 1.6 million, which is an extremely large amount of money for our budget. So we needed to find a PBM, a pharmacy benefit manager, that could still meet our employees' needs with their medications while offering the most competitive options out there. Caitlin and I really learned a lot sitting in this meeting about how pharmacies and drug manufacturers and insurance companies all work together in these very large conglomerates. And ESI is one of those. ESI is owned by a drug manufacturer, and then they also own the pharmacies that we can get our prescriptions through. And so they literally control the whole circuit. They're not the only ones, all the other ones do it too. We just happen to have this one. I really had never paid attention to that before because they are these huge conglomerates, but they control every price point place. The price of the drug, the price of the rebates, the price that you pay to have a pharmacy benefit manager, and the price you pay to the pharmacy. It was pretty surprising. So we absolutely realized that we could no longer be limited by having access to only ESI's pharmacies and their partnership with Walgreens, which was an extremely limiting option for us in what our employees could have access to. And so Smith RX is kind of different. I'll get to that on the other slides, but they guarantee a savings of 26% of our current spend based on our current enrollment and usage. So unless that 2% all of a sudden left the district, which I don't think they are, I don't know who they are, but I don't think they are, we should be realizing a 26% savings by switching to them based on our current enrollment and usage. The next slides talk a little bit more in depth about Smith RX. They are not owned by or integrated with any insurance companies, pharmacies, or drug manufacturers. They are a completely independent PBM that allows them to go anywhere and have every single option out there that's available to find the most cost-effective place to provide whatever prescriptions it is that somebody needs. That said though, they do kind of help steer people in that right direction, because I think all of us know that it's very difficult to independently research where is my best option. So they do play a significant role in that. Instead of having what is called a spread pricing model, where they profit from the difference between what they charge the employer and what they pay at the pharmacy, Smith RX charges a flat administrative fee and passes through 100% of the rebates and discounts to us. So one of the things that we did learn was that in this conglomerate with ESI, the pharmaceutical company sets the price of the drug and they set the price of the rebate. And then ESI takes a percentage of the cost of the drug and a percentage of the rebate. And every time the price of the drug goes up, they get more money. Every time the price of the rebate goes up, they get more money. And that's how they make money. And then they all own each other, so they're all making money. Smith RX, we just pay a flat fee per person. And then anything that comes through on rebates or savings or any discounts like that get directly passed along to us in our membership. They also claim to be even more transparent, mostly because we are shopping around, all of the costs are visible to us, and there is no percentage keeping of costs or rebates. Let's see, let's go on to the next slide. And then you can Google them too and really go down the rabbit hole of all the things they offer, but this kind of takes us into the things that they feel make them different, and we agree. So they have a program called Connect 360 that leverages manufacturer coupons, assistance programs, and alternate supply sources to further help reduce the costs for both the employer and the employee. They are, very client-centered. Every once in a while, people may say that I don't necessarily trust large companies or others based on the nature of my work and what I've experienced. That being said though, if a company is willing to sign a contract guaranteeing 26% in savings to us, and if they don't reach it, they still have to pay it to us, I do believe them when they say they help our employees and us navigate through this process and get everybody transitioned to the best place for them with the best cost connected to that. And so I have decided that a company that's willing to put that much money, which I think is significant, into a contract that's signed with guarantees like that I do believe that they will provide the assistance that they have promised us through this process. Probably the area where folks are going to see the biggest difference is if they take a specialty medication. So that 2% of our population that takes a specialty medication, they are going to be handheld through the process of working with their doctors on moving to a biosimilar of that medication. Now, Jesse's probably the expert here, but my basic understanding is biosimilar is not a generic. It has a different recipe. So in my preferred hobby of cooking and baking, we're still going to get the end result of a chocolate chip cookie, but we are going to have a different recipe with maybe some changes on the amounts and the ingredients that get us to that same place. Whereas the generic is usually mirroring that recipe more closely. I could have just totally butchered that, but I have no good analogies in the medical world. But biosimilars have actually been around for a little while now. We just haven't been a part of a group that is moving to them quickly. So
this is the biggest change, is the biosimilars.
The biosimilars for specialty drugs will be the biggest change. The example that I kept in my brain was Stelara is a specialty drug. It costs $35,000 every 8 weeks currently.
Really?
Yes. This isn't an analogy like my recipe, this is real facts. So Stelara costs $35,000 every 8 weeks for a person who needs it.
What's it for?
It's an autoimmune.
Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease.
So in moving to a biosimilar, the cost would be $1,100 every 8 weeks. And right now, SmithRx works with Mark Cuban's Cost Plus to supply that medication. So that is just one drug that is actually our highest use drug. So that's why they gave us that example with significant savings. They also, with specialty drugs as well, if there is not that biosimilar and someone is on a specialty drug or for some reason the biosimilar just absolutely does not work for somebody, they still assist folks in navigating different grant programs and foundations to help cover the costs and still getting those medications from the best possible pharmacy source, not just like we have now with ESI and Walgreens. They also have an in-house team, which includes clinicians who do work with folks to get them through not only this process, but at the pharmacy as well. So if you end up standing at the pharmacy counter, they do have support available to talk to you and help you through anything, even live, as you're experiencing it. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen, but every once in a while it does. In this Connect 360 program, during the very beginning, there's this 60 to 90 day window in which people will be transitioning. So if you are taking Stelara, you will not have to immediately have this all sorted out with you and your doctor and SmithRx on January 1st. They have a 60 to 90 day window in which they'll be working with people to make this transition hopefully as smooth as possible for anyone going through it. That being said, for folks who are not on a specialty med and you're just taking a regular med, a generic that's been around for 20 or 30 years, you now actually have the option to really go almost anywhere. On the last slide, I talked about how SmithRx partners with over 65,000 pharmacies nationally. I put down CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and Costco just as some big names that are national entities, but they also work with independent pharmacies, small family-owned pharmacies and things like that, where, you know, the price for a lot of the medications out there are so similar no matter where you go that they're not really going to be overly steering anyone, but they're happy to help you decide where to get that. If you currently get your prescriptions via mail order with ESI's mail order pharmacy, SmithRx uses Amazon Pharmacy, Mark Cuban's Cost Plus, and Walmart as their three primary mail order groups. And then the specialty pharmacy, they work with Costco Wholesale and Sendero. So SmithRx will be working with everyone to have their prescriptions transferred to wherever it is they need to have them transferred to. So people will not need to get new prescriptions unless you're already, ready for one. You will not need to get new prescriptions. You will not need to get new pre-authorizations if the medication you're currently taking required a pre-authorization. And they will help folks figure out, where to transfer to or help you transfer it there if you already have a place that makes sense for you. Really, our biggest impact group will be the 2% of folks who are not necessarily employees, it could be spouses and dependents as well, who are taking those specialty medications. SmithRx will be specifically reaching out to those individuals, and I will also be reaching out to, I don't know who they are yet, I don't usually care to know, but I will be getting the list of just people who are on a specialty medication. I don't need to know which one you're on, but I want to also be able to send out information so that people who maybe didn't read all of the emails that we will be sending out, or reading any of the other communications, will get an individual letter and contact from the district to let them know to be prepared for SmithRx contacting them, that it is legitimate, and they are the group that we're going to be working with moving forward. But we know that there is technically disruption for everybody because you will get a new card, which I feel like is low disruption in today's day and age. They also have a digital card, so you can just have it on your phone and in their portal. There will be some disruption if you use ESI's mail order. However, I don't know, I might just be a little bit more laid back than some, but honestly, I don't really care if it gets shipped to me from ESI's pharmacy or Costco, as long as it keeps showing up at my door and it's what I need. So I don't feel that that's a huge disruption, but it is still some disruption that people will have their prescription transferred to one of those three groups, but hopefully they don't mind that it's no longer coming from BSI's pharmacy and it's coming from one of those three, which I feel like are all places we already order from and shop at, so we're familiar with them. Let's see. We will be sending out a ton of information at the end of October connected to our open enrollment. So our open enrollment period are those two first full weeks in November. This time, we are making no change to our medical, so that is remaining the same. So we are focusing our energy on over-explaining and providing more information on the pharmacy change. And we will be holding, I haven't scheduled the dates yet, but we will be holding some drop-in after school hour options for people to pop in. You can technically ask questions about medical or pharmacy. In my mind, I'm focused more on the pharmacy of people dropping in for questions that they may have, but we will be having that as well. Our consultants that we work with have other employers who are using Smith RX successfully.
And school districts.
And school districts. So we hope to have a successful transition. We expect to have that 60 to 90 day period where we're especially helping people who need that help. And, you know, hopefully everyone understands that while our goal is to never have any disruption for people when it comes to their healthcare, unfortunately, 45% of our total spend is just unmanageable. It also feels irresponsible to not be out there looking for the best price. I think in the last, 5 to 10 years, everybody does more shopping around in a lot of aspects of their life. And we hit that point budgetarily where 1.6 million a year in compounding increases is just not sustainable for us. And it pulls away from too many of the other things that need attention. So my hope is that even though there may be some frustration for folks who have to move through this process, that they understand that we still want you to get everything you need. We're gonna help you get everything you need. But as a district, we really need to unify around the fact that our pharmacy spend needed to be reduced. And we're doing it in a way that we think still provides everybody with what they need while bringing about budgetary savings that, quite honestly, just really need to come down to be sustainable in the future, so.
And this is a common problem in Waukesha County, right? Because there's a group that I know both you and Caitlin are part of. So there's multiple districts, dozens of school districts who are just meeting about healthcare and RX, and this is a common issue for school districts in this county.
Yeah, I mean, some of our school district neighbors are working to get people off their plan, to figure out how to get you into the independent marketplace and get you off the plan. We're really hoping that we can continue to provide a great benefit in pharmacy to people while still, trying to get that 45% much closer to that 25% that's that nationwide and actually even regional average. So we feel pretty confident about it. I mean, I'm always a little hesitant to change because, I get the phone calls when things don't go well. So I want this to go smoothly. We've met with Smith RX a few times, found out a lot of information, so I do feel good about the transition and that everybody will continue to get everything that they need.
Everything else stays the same, nice healthcare.
Nice healthcare will still be available to us, which we will be doing a little extra marketing of during open enrollment as well. It's just provided to if you have your medical insurance with us. Dental is staying the same, medical is staying the same. So hopefully, you know, this is the only change that people have to go through. And I mean, technically you only have to go through the change if you have a prescription. So,
You had said, there are other school districts in Wisconsin that use SmithRx as well. I mean, I know you.
yeah, I haven't gotten their permission to say who they all are yet,
Yeah.
but we can at some point. But yes, there is one that's in a 15-mile radius.
Comparable in.
Yes, they are one of our direct peers and comparables, yes.
Could you remind me the yearly deductible and copay structure is the same?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
We did not make any changes to the deductibles or the copays. And then the copays for pharmacy are staying the same too. So if you had a $20 copay under ESI, you still have 20. We matched all the copays and deductibles. On, I don't have the full list, but in some of the Connect 360 categories, which I will have in time for open enrollment, because we have another meeting with SmithRx once we do all the final signing. For some of their Connect 360 programs, like for specialty drugs, and other things, it could be a zero cost to the employee. So if you move into Connect 360 excess specialty, then you're going from like that 35,000 to that 1,100. We pay the full 1,100. You have no copay or deductible connected to that. Same thing with some of their other areas. They have an MS program. They have an insulin program. And then the specialty drug program. So within some of those, if you have been moved to that, you actually are at zero because you're moving to that. Now, it also doesn't hit your deductible because you paid zero, but I think for a lot of people, that's awesome to not have that.
That's similar to Nice Healthcare, which is a program within a program. That if you use Nice Healthcare and get RX through Nice, you're not paying any deductible either. Through
Or
that,
copay.
or copay as you go through the Nice Healthcare program.
Yeah, and in the presentations given by our consultants, we actually do have a lot of membership, so it's not necessarily employee membership, who they are just on a pharmacy, a high-cost specialty drug. They don't actually have high-cost medical connected to it. They're just on this maintenance specialty drug. So they should, unless they have some kind of other medical issue pop up, they actually should see exponentially less out of pocket because that is the only thing usually going to hit their deductible. So if they just keep with their preventive medicine, visits and this specialty drug, they should actually see, some real savings because that is their only cost that's going towards their deductible.
So am I hearing this right? So for example, that Stelara, 35,000 every 2 weeks, every 8 weeks, and there's a 20% copay on that drug now currently, correct?
So they would hit their deductible.
Well, right,
Right, the first time they got
Right.
it filled, they.
The first time they get it filled, they'll hit their total medical deductible.
for sure. But if they switch to this biosimilar, the district would just pay 1,100 and then there's no copay,
Yes,
just by making a switch to a drug that would do the same
because
same outcome.
we're
saving
all-
so much.
we're
Yeah.
already realizing such a significant
Yeah.
savings from that move, that
Sure.
one of the components of it is that we pay it,
That's good, no, that's.
which we are happy to pay.
That's very positive.
What is the single out of pocket?
Oh, single, 4, and then 8 for a family, but 6 for one individual.
So, yeah, literally like a member, an employee or a member, if it's a dependent or whatever, on that first Phil,
They pay
they're paying
6 or 8 grand.
6 or 8 grand. But then they're done for the rest of the year, and then the district is paying the $35,000 every single
Every
time.
week,
And
yeah.
so, but now that employee doesn't have that $6,000 or
Yeah.
$8,000 cost.
It's very likely they will, like I said, based on what we, and all we see are numbers. But this, number 22 is a very high class pharmacy, but almost nothing on the medical. So it's likely they might not even have anything out of pocket, let alone that 6 or 8 grand they had to spend, every year. So now some people, they might have more medical coming in based on, what their needs are, but
Well, they'll pay that 6 or 8 grand over time versus
Yes, instead of all at
January
once.
15th
Yes,
or
instead
whatever
of
they
one
get their
hit.
first bill.
yeah, that first fill is a lot for people on high cost drugs.
And we're very hopeful about this change. And when we brought some of the early numbers, the 1.6 million to this committee, what, a half year ago or?
Probably longer at that point.
Yeah, longer at that point, it was January, maybe February, something like that. When we first started seeing those numbers, I know it was a shock to everybody and I think the charge from the committee is, well, what are you gonna do about it? This is what we're doing about it. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours by both of these ladies and their staffs, a lot of hours to get to this point, and we're hopeful that this is a direction that is a win-win.
They've been around for 10 years, they have excellent ratings,
You're just signing with them for 1 year, or how does that work?
yeah. 1 year.
1 year with a guarantee.
One year
1
with
year with the 26%
26% guarantee. Yeah.
And then obviously the successor contracts will be more maintenance contracts if we continue, because the 26% guarantee is based on moving a certain percentage of people from the specialty to the biosimilar, and then some other tweaked savings inside their Connect 360 plan, but the bulk of that 26% is based on our current specialty med spend. So obviously, after year 1, when we move folks, they will not be offering a 26% guarantee after that. However, from that point forward, as people, if we have Smith-Rx, as people are employed and coming on, they will be immediately moved into the Connect 360 plans for specialty and other high-cost drugs. So we shouldn't, have those big spikes anymore as people come on and off the plan. Unfortunately, every year we add specialty med folks. And, they need those prescriptions. And that's what we've made a commitment to do, is to provide that through our benefit plan. But we hope that we can continue to provide it just at an exponentially more reasonable cost. And so, we just really want everyone to partner with us, through this process, so that we don't have to have this unfortunate budget conversation every year where we're caught with, millions, coming at us each year.
Any other questions? Okay.
Alright.
I'll
Thank you.
come up with a better analogy for that.
I like the cooking analogy.
Alright, thank you for that.
Yes.
This time we'll move on to our final subject, the 25-26 October budget adjustments, certified state aid and proposed tax levy. Scott.
Apologies for the staple being in a weird spot. But thank you to Jeff for printing. I was gonna just have them up and I didn't get a chance to post it on board docs ahead of time, so I figured the hard copy might come next. Okay, so 25-26 final budget. I will say, so we get all of our final budget factors October 15th, and then we presented our first board committee following that, and then the board meeting after that for the board budget approval.
And last year, there was one more day from October 15th to our committee, and that day was helpful. I felt it this year, one last day. So, we'll review big picture for starters. Our agenda, so big picture, calculating total revenue, total tax levy and mill rate, and then we'll go through some of our key budget items. So the first part of this is just big picture, the formulas that we work through in our budget. Leah says, we've heard this 1,000 times, so she's told Okay. Alright, so starting with the revenue limit formula, again, like I'll keep it 30,000 feet. We take our resident membership FTE times our per pupil plus exemptions, non-recurring and recurring, equals our revenue limit of 30. What I'm gonna do next is plug our numbers in here so we can see how what we do connects to the big picture. So the next piece, so we'll go through the formulas first and then we'll plug our numbers in. The next piece is we take that revenue limit authority, subtract our aid, and that equals our revenue limit tax levy. We add in other tax levies, but that equals our revenue limit tax levy. And you can see the final value, there's final values from both the revenue limit authority and from equalization aid that are released on October 15th. So we all along have this preliminary budget that is preliminary. We say it's preliminary, it's projected. And it's not until right now that we work through some of our final budget factors that impact our overall revenue limit, our aid, and therefore our tax levy and mill rate as well. So we have our revenue limit tax levy, we add in our other tax levies. So by now, we've talked a lot about Fund 39 debt levy and Fund 80 debt levy. And then that equals our total school-based tax levy, so that's the third of the big four, as I call them. And then our mill rate formula is our total school-based tax levy that we just calculated, divided by our equalized property values times 1,000, and that equals our tax mill rate. The tax mill rate is the rate that property owners will pay for every $1,000 of value of their property. So we'll start plugging in our numbers. Resident membership FTE for us this year, our 3-year average is 3,804, and I will in the coming section review how that compares to prior year for each of these factors. Before we do that, our September and summer school pupil count, resident membership FTE, is down 74 FTE from the prior year. So 25-26, we are at 3,746 FTE compared to the prior year of 3,820. So that's a 74 FTE decline. And what is included in the revenue limit is the 3-year average that I believe is the next page. Yep.
Now, we knew that dip was coming, which is why we were talking about the large senior class and the smaller 9th grade class.
So the 3-year average is a decrease of 24 FTE. The formula uses a 3-year average. I will say, when the formula was created in 1993, districts at that time were generally increasing enrollment. So the formula benefited districts that were increasing enrollment. That's what the majority of districts were at that time, 30 years ago. 75% of districts now are in declining enrollment, of which we are one, and I say that because our 3-year average FTE is decreasing. And so when districts are in that, when that's their world, that's when the revenue limit formula really starts working against us. So this.
There'll be an article, I apologize,
Sure, go
I
ahead.
shared it with Caitlin, but I'll be sharing it with the board at the meeting on Monday, a week from today. So when I put out my board update, there's an article about this in the State News, this exact point, which is why I interrupted, is that it's about how the revenue limit itself, and how the funding formula itself benefits only 25% roughly of the districts in the state, of which we're not one.
So the 3-year average helps to soften the blow, if you will, of declining enrollment, but doesn't give us revenue, obviously, in the scenario where you would be increasing enrollment. So that's the reason why, the rationale why there's a 3-year average, which is included in the revenue limit worksheet. So again, you can see that it's helpful for us because in 1 year we were down 74 FTE, over 3 we're down 24. Again, that's the figure that's used within the revenue limit formula. So back to the big picture, the next key factor there is our per pupil FTE, and we know now that that's going to be increasing at $325 each year for the next 400 years.
unless something changes in state law. So we simply take our prior number and add $325 to it, so we were at about 12,080, and now we're at 12,407, and there's a couple dollars of rounding within the formula. So we're simply taking our membership we just calculated times our per pupil. And the exemptions are much smaller, so I'm gonna keep it, in an effort to keep it high level. We've calculated our total revenue limit authority, which is increasing from the prior year at an amount of 3.6%, which is about $1.7 million. So that's our big picture. That's 95% of our overall revenue limit. Our overall revenue comes from this formula right here. Moving next, continuing through our formulas, we just calculated our revenue limit authority. We're going to subtract our aid next. So the state on October 15th tells us our aid. We projected just about this amount, is very similar to our projection. So there were no surprises for us. I know there was a lot of talk over the summer and in October even when the actual aid numbers came out. The state did not increase the bucket of aid at the state level or the allocation of aid at the state level. So a lot of districts didn't plan for that. I actually did plan for that. I will say, I guess it's part luck and part paying attention to what people are talking about, what legislatures are talking about, what we're hearing.
So we received extra special education money,
We
but
did.
no other money in the general allotment.
Correct. So the state legislatures, when they're doing the state budget, decided to keep the state aid bucket flat and put additional dollars towards special ed aid, which does give us additional money. State aid, we can see in the formula, simply is dollars that offset the tax levy. These dollars decrease the tax levy. So when we hear that, Menominee Falls went up 33% in aid, that does not mean we got 33% more money. It simply means our revenue limit, was what it was going to be, and we just have more aid to decrease our tax levy. So looking at what this means, just in graph form, our 24-25 year was low, and there's a lot of factors that impact state equalization aid. One of our biggest was our defeasance. So this was planned and projected, and this is why, again, there were no surprises for us. And we utilize the formulas that we know and what we're hearing at the state level to make, to put things into place, or for example, our CE and Rec Fund 80 project, where the timing is advantageous to us. So that's why we're able to do this project with maintaining a flat tax.
And no debt.
No debt.
So $10 million a building, no debt.
So moving into then the tax levy comparison from year to year is roughly the same, just a slight decrease of just under $100,000. So 39.2 this year, 39.3 last year. And we've been hovering right around that under 40 million mark for many years. So our tax levy, if we looked at it in graph form, which I don't think I have in this PowerPoint, is very flat. So we help our taxpayers avoid the roller coastering that comes with aid by utilizing Fund 80 and Fund 39 advantages. And then moving into equalized property values, which this was an area that we were surprised about last year. If you recall, we had been increasing at about 11%. That was 2 years in a row. And then last year we had a decrease of point something, just under 1%, 0.3. So that was odd for us, and we looked into it, and there was an error with the overall assessed value.
Not on our
part, on the village side of things. And we're just the recipient of this value. So again, this is one of those October values that we get, we're just given, and we plug it into our formulas then. So we calculated our total school-based tax levy divided by this number times 1,000 equals our mill rate. So with our total tax levy staying roughly the same and our denominator increasing, you'll see on the next slide our mill rate is decreasing. And you can see there in the next slide of the graph what that
to the lowest level.
property is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go to the one with the nice graph, 30-year tax mill rate history, one more slide there. So we're going to be at a
30 or below?
$6.35 mill rate, which is and at this point, it's like 32. And I mean, it really is farther from that, but this is when revenue limit started, so. As far as much data as I have is back to 1993. So we are at a $6.35 mill rate, and again, that's tax levy staying the same, it's really associated with property values increasing. So denominator goes up and our tax.
74 cents on the thousand, right?
Correct.
Less for the taxpayers this year over last year.
So moving into vouchers. Vouchers is, school districts are a pass-through entity, if you will, for voucher payments. So
And
Go
just
ahead.
interrupt,
Yeah.
does that include the new DO?
this includes the new DO.
Okay, so we're dropping from 7 to 635 with the new DO as part of the
Correct. We'll be utilizing our health insurance reserves from the good years,
liability, yeah.
from the liability account for the new district office.
Thank you.
So private school vouchers are a little odd. The way that they work is they show up in our overall revenue limit formula, and we increase our revenue limit formula by the amount of vouchers. And then we pay it right back out. So we're a pass-through. We receive aid that equalization aid that offsets this amount. So while it is increasing our overall revenue limit, we also get aid. So it's not a direct taxpayer increase to the levy. We do get aid that offsets this amount. However, aid is a year delayed. So in 24-25, we had about $500,000 less in vouchers. So the aid that comes with that isn't all associated with 25-26. We'll see that next year. Also, if we looked at last year's version of this, we increased about 500,000 as well. So this number is going to keep escalating as the caps are removed at the state level. So there used to be caps for how many students can attend within a district's boundaries, and that cap is removed. We're still far from it, but there are districts that they're hitting the caps. So just, I guess it's here in an effort of being transparent that this is a pass-through, it's an in and out for school districts, and we do receive aid to offset our increase to the revenue. Okay, so that's all high-level stuff. We're gonna get into the weeds at this next portion. Any questions on the big picture stuff before I get into the details? Okay. So we're gonna start with the key budget items that are some of those significant increases or impacts on our budget. So the first one is no fun. This is Act 12 personal property payments, which generally districts haven't had to pay much attention to. So the definition from the state is in 2017, Act 59 created a state aid program equal to the 2017-18 property taxes imposed on machinery, tools, and patterns that were not manufacturing property. That in 24-25 was money that was given to school districts outside of the revenue limit, which means it was new additional money for school districts to use. Our amount was $757,000, which is a large amount. It's larger in a percent way that a lot of our area school districts have. So that was, that definitely impacted us in a good way last year, especially when we were dealing with our health insurance increases. However, without warning, this year, the state decided to put that money into the revenue limit, which means it is no longer new additional spendable dollars. It simply went into the aid bucket and helps us to decrease our overall tax levy in that formula.
So that means effectively we lost $750,000.
Yes,
Just because of that change
from the
on that page, which just happened.
Yes, just happens there's no, discussion about it, there's no, this could happen, it just happened.
And this is from the state, this is not from within our district, this is
From the state.
The state,
And districts are impacted in very differing ways.
DPI in particular, right?
So,
The DPI in particular made this change.
no, I believe it would be state legislatures. So if a district has a very small amount of machinery, tools, and patterns, manufacturers or industrial in their community, this number is gonna be smaller. So this number is a percent of their overall budgets for many districts. For us, it's a large amount, so that's why it's such a hefty impact for us. So I take pride in being very accurate in
conservative and accurate with budgeting, and this one I did not expect, so this is one that I lose sleep over. So again, not projected, not included in our budget forecast, which means we take a hit from that. So I'll go through, we have our overall like actual numbers we'll look at too in a second, so we'll go through a couple of these other items first. Health insurance, which is no new information, we've talked about this plenty of times, is our 20% increase in 2025. And again, as Leah mentioned in our last item, that we're on the January 1, we're on a calendar year. So we receive, half of 1 year and half of the other calendar year within one budget year. So the 20% increase in 2025, and then a projected 5% in 2026. And again, that's compounded. So as you increase, each year you're increasing more and more. And thankfully, we have the presentation that just happened where we have that savings built into our budget. So, and we've planned for that number. That was part of our budget reduction and leverage items conversation. So that's 560,000 that USI, not ESI, but our brokers had told us, this is a safe number for us to use in our calculations, and it's spot on from what the guarantee is from SmithRx. So that's in an effort to combat this industry that all school districts are facing the crunch from. The next piece is open enrollment. So if you go to the graph on the next page, it just is a visual of our history of open enrollment. So this year, for the first time, we're at a net expense of about $190,000. This used to be a net revenue for our school district. We did open 10 seats this year, so that is about $8,000 roughly per seat, so that's beneficial in additional revenue. So if we hadn't done that, our net revenue would be $80,000 more of a net expense. But this is just, here's informational, it's a consistent trend that impacts our budget, so I think it's important to include. And then finally, did you pass? You did, right? Everybody has like their actual numbers. Okay. So carryover is also included, which is our practice in the falls. We have the majority of our carryover identified for capital projects, which includes the remainder of the Riverside project, so 3/5 of that project still happens in 25-26 year. It's really just happened in July and August over summer, which hits the 25-26 budget. We have elementary furniture, which is the third and final year of the elementary furniture refresh. We have new copiers to replace the copy center. So as the copy center was eliminated, which is a savings of about $70,000 annually, we had additional copiers placed in the schools so that copying can be done locally, which is an initial cost, and then we'll save $60,000, $70,000, even more annually based on not having that refill labor. And there's a facilities plow included in that. So there's efficiencies created there when we have less contracting out for snow removal and our team can do more. So those are some of the capital projects, and then the remaining items are carryovers from divisions and schools. One of the main ones is a curriculum and learning carryover for the elementary math adoption. So that's anticipated to be higher than is already included in their textbook budget. That's $296,000 alone. So that's the majority of the school and division carryovers there. With this, I know these are very large numbers, but with this we maintain a 26% fund balance, which is still a healthy amount. I don't feel great going lower than that. So when we talk about carryover going forward, I think it's crucial that we make sure that it's that it's only from amounts that hadn't been spent in the prior year. That's just where things are crossing fiscal years. So we'll definitely make sure that we're paying attention to that going forward. But the 26% fund balance is definitely a healthy amount. It's still in that high grade category when you're looking at those credit ratings.
And we have board policy on this at 25%. So that's one of the reasons you keep fund balances for the board members. I know you know this, but for those listening is so you don't have to short-term borrow. So not having to short-term borrow to make payroll, because we don't receive all of that state money and all of these dollars at one time. It comes intermittently throughout the year, which is why you maintain, one of the reasons you maintain a fund balance, in order to make sure that we can make payroll without short-term borrowing.
And we'll still have the district office project covered and still have the 26
You got it,
And a 630, and a 635 mill rate, yes.
and
yes.
the 635 already.
And the 635.
So turning this into actual numbers, there's a document that will be, we'll put it for public view after this meeting as well, along with PowerPoint, but you can see the actual dollars listed there, so it's everything that we've talked about in number form. You'll see that revenues and expenditures don't match, and the difference there is that those carryover amounts. As always, our Fund 21 and 27 balance, so that Fund 27 can't maintain a negative fund balance, the district must make a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 annually to cover the difference. This year, we do have an increase in the an increase in the special ed reimbursement rate, which is helpful, very helpful for us for our Fund 27. In the debt service fund, we're kind of back to normal. So 24-25 was an odd year. The prior year was the defeasance, 24-25 was our debt holiday, if you will, for the purpose of our Riverside and Seton reconstruction project. So we're back up to normal in 25-26. Capital projects, our Fund 46 is not active yet, so we're seeing no activity there. Food service, we do have, there's some planned essentially carryover as well, where there were projects that were planned in 24-25 that took place already in summer of 25-26. So the freezer, I believe it was at the high school, is one of those projects. And then community service, which is our Fund 80. This is mainly for right now our expansion project of the rec center, and the majority of the funding so we levied $5 million in 24-25, and a small portion of that actually expensed in 24-25. We had large expenses in July and August. So again, it's just a carryover, if you will, of the levy that took place that wasn't all spent yet. It's spent in early 25-26, and then we also have the additional levy, the final levy for that project of $3.5 million. So the majority of that project is taking place in 25-26. And then I'm going to look down to line 50, that all funds transfer, which for us is just our transfer from Fund 27, from Fund 10 to Fund 27 to support the remaining balance that's needed to bring Fund 27 basically back up to net zero. And you can see the difference of the 5.7 million from last year and the 5.1 million from this year, and that is the increase in state aid helping us, and that's how we're spending less on our transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27.
And Fund 27, just as a reminder, is special
Special ed.
education funding.
Yes, thank you.
Just, I know the numbers can start to float all around, but.
Appreciate it.
Yep, no worries. Yeah.
And then the last portion of this is the breakdown of our tax levy. So these are the numbers that we saw earlier in the PowerPoint. The general fund is our Fund 10 tax levy, and then we've got our debt service levy coming back and our Fund 80 community service levy supporting the remainder of that project. So you can see there the total tax levy that's very similar to the prior year, just slight.
So balanced budget, new district office project, almost $4 million project, and a decreased mill rate of to $6.35
That's correct,
per thousand.
yes.
With a brand new fire system for all of it, Franklin, which I believe is a critical part of that project.
And we just completed it, or we're in the process of completing the $10 million.
Yeah, I mean,
Community rec
BJS got a little nervous when I was talking about the new year. It's just, that's good natured ribbing about just, we're getting close to the end of that project. So, really, they're doing a great job. So
And then-
BJS is doing a great job up there.
And this is also including that hit on almost $750,000 from unplanned move by the state.
Correct, so we will be utilizing our health insurance reserves to kind of fill the gap of that amount, which for us
Yeah, that was a tough day, it was right after the 15th.
It's a tough
Caitlin
day.
called me in and, it briefed me, and she had a briefing sheet for me, and it was.
Said, do you want the good news first or the bad news?
I took the bad news. But obviously the good news is the mill rate, obviously for the taxpayers, which if you look at the way the funding formula is written, it's actually written to do what it did.
Mhm.
In a way. That people's taxes are gonna be their mill rate, so it depends on the value of their land, could be lower depending on the value of the property. Other questions?
So we'll take a similar presentation to the full board on October 27th, and you'll see the full packet instead of just the one page of your publication. And then this page is what the board approved, so we have the whole packet of supplementary information. But this page that you have in front of you that will be attached on board docs is what the board is actually approving.
And that's what goes to DPI, right?
Yep.
The one pager. Very good.
Any other questions from any of the board members here? Thank you for the time you put into this and thorough explanation, that was really good. I know whenever I see that, like formula, it makes me sweat, but you do a good job.
Thank you.
And,
I try to make it, simplified so that you don't have to sweat, I'll sweat over it, that's my job, so, thank you.
Awesome. Well, at this time, there are no more discussion items, no action items, so I'd like to actually seek a motion to adjourn. There's a motion.
Second.
A motion by Jesse and a second by Jennifer. And all in favor say aye. Alright, so we are adjourned and it is 7:42.